The Densha Go series has been around for a long time. Starting out in the late 90s, the series has seen releases on a number of systems. Fast forward to now, and the Densha Go series has finally made an appearance on the Nintendo Switch. Now, while the game is definitely no joke when it comes to language barrier, is it still possible to get some enjoyment out of this game if you don't know the language? And more importantly, is it fun? That's what we're here to talk about. Danny from the Famicast here, now celebrating 10 years of being on the internet. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications. And if you leave us a comment below, we might read it out on our bi-weekly show called the Famicast. For now though, sit back, relax, because we're going to go in deep on Densha Go Hashirō Yamanote-sen for the Nintendo Switch. We're going to be talking about modes, gameplay, visuals, performance, and the language barrier in this in-depth review. Now, Densha Go on the Switch is a little difficult to wrap your head around at first. However, if you give it some time, the standard controls will become like second nature to you. Now, this control method has you controlling acceleration and braking with the left joystick, while the face buttons perform a variety of other actions. So, B controls your lights, Y controls wipers for like rain and snow, X is a confirmation button, which is used to confirm door closing and upcoming speed limit changes, stuff like that, these little blue and orange lines that pop up, and A sounds a horn. Now, there are a few trains in the game that actually require a dual stick setup, with the left stick controlling acceleration and the right stick controlling the brakes. We'll get into that a little bit more later. Now, driving the trains requires a significant amount of concentration, as there are a lot of things that you need to pay attention to. You have to keep your eyes peeled for speed limit notifications, the blue and orange lines I talked about, oncoming trains so you can turn off your lights, and be on the lookout for maintenance workers or onlookers hoping for you to toot that horn. Now, I spent quite a bit of time with the main mode of the game here, more on modes later, going through the missions here. Now, things start off fairly easily, which gives you a chance to get used to the driving mechanics and ramp up at a pretty generous pace. Now that you have a general idea of what the mechanics are all about, you might be wondering, aside from generally driving around trains in Tokyo, what the goal is here and how you get evaluated. Well, generally speaking, you are able to complete missions by arriving at the next station on time. Now, not only that, but you will see bonus points for obeying the speed limits, dimming your lights appropriately, acknowledging fans and workers with the horn, and yeah, like I said, arriving at the next station within the displayed time frame. Now, not only that, but you may net some bonus points for arriving exactly on time and or stopping as close as possible to the stopping point. Now, overall, the gameplay here is very addictive and will definitely keep you coming back for more. Now, runs in the main mode don't take up a lot of your time here either, so it's pretty easy to go through a run and go on with your day. Just set the game down and go on with your day. Now, my only complaint is that, as far as I know, there is no way to do a quick restart of a run. Now, for example, I was having a hell of a time achieving a mission goal that asked me to hit exactly 50 kilometers an hour at some point in the run, and there was only one place to do this in the 5-station run at the beginning. Now, even if you complete the other goals and go all the way to the end, you fail. Now, you are able to quit and exit out of the mission at any time, sure, but you have to go all the way back to the mission select screen to do this. So it would have been nice just to be able to restart just as soon as I realized that I couldn't go on or whatever, but yeah, that's what it is. A minor annoyance here, but there's still something that could be improved upon with the quick restart option. Another thing I want to note here too, the capture button does work here on the Switch, but for screenshots only. You are unable to take video here, unfortunately. Now, in the promotional materials and like websites and all that stuff leading up to the game's release, Taito did tout that Densha Go on the Switch would feature both Joy-Con support as well as some kind of touchscreen support here as well. Now, I want to clarify that a little bit. Touch controls are possible in handheld mode, but there's really not much that you can do here. Now, from what I can tell, touching the screen while playing in handheld mode only replicates the press of the X button. Kind of disappointing, but realistically speaking, the UI would have to be completely redesigned for anything more. Now, probably like many of you, I took the Joy-Con support to mean that the game would feature some kind of motion control options here. This is not the case, for better or worse. Hear me out here. So, what Taito meant by this was that by using the Joy-Con in split form, you can get the feeling of controlling two very specific trains, the Yamanote 205 and the 103 train series. You could do this in kind of a semi-realistic way. Now, for these two trains, the game actually requires you to use two sticks, the left and right stick for controls, with the left stick for acceleration and the right stick for braking. Now, when it's all said and done, a motion control option here would have been, I don't know, maybe a little bit weird. And I couldn't see myself actually using them outside of playing them to talk about in a review like this. You know, still, it does seem a bit misleading with the wording here, considering that pretty much any game can be played in this fashion, you know, with split Joy-Con, but it is what it is. Now, there is some good news on the horizon for fans of special controllers. Now, currently, a company called Zuiki is currently developing a special one-handed controller for Densha de Go Hashirō Yamanote-sen for the Switch. Now, details here are very sparse, and the only thing you can do right now is sign up to be notified about more information about the controller as it becomes available. Now, I'm going to reach out to these guys and see what I can find out, so be sure to check our website, Famicast.com, and also maybe the YouTube channel for possible updates in the future. I don't know. I'll put up a link in the description box below too, just in case you want to check it out as well. Now, there are a few different modes on offer here in Densha de Go on the Switch. Now, under Uche de Go, that first mode there, you have Engineer's Road, Daily Roulette, and Free Run. Now, you'll likely be spending most of your time in Engineer's Road, as it is kind of like the main mode of the game. I mean, here you can progress through a variety of missions with increasing difficulty, unlock secret trains, and basically these trains can be used in other modes. Yeah, and like that type of stuff. So I've spent a majority of my time with this mode in the game, as there are quite a few things here to do. Now, Daily Roulette lets you play through a random run once a day in an attempt to get a high score. And Arcade Mode lets you choose a line and then play through a variety of missions. Now, there's also a tutorial here that you should definitely check out before diving in as well. Now, when it's all said and done, I think the modes here may seem a little bit sparse, but there are over 200 different missions to challenge and quite a few things to unlock. Now, the free run mode here also gives you the ability to go through a number of different lines in a no pressure kind of way. Now, not only that, but you can choose the time of day, weather effects, and all that type of stuff too. Still, Engineer's Road was my go-to mode here, as I felt like I was actually making some kind of progress through the game and unlocking more trains and lines and types and stuff like that to choose from. Now, Densha de Go on the Switch is a decent looking game that runs pretty smoothly, and it's also running on Unreal Engine 4. Now, I will say right off the bat, if you're looking for visual fidelity, you might want to look towards the PS4 version of the game, which actually runs at 60 frames per second and just looks better overall. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this, but it seems to me that the Switch version uses some kind of dynamic resolution scaling depending on what's going on the screen. So what do I mean by this? So like, for example, when there are multiple trains pulling into a station at the same time, kind of like what you're looking at right now, you can clearly notice that the text on the train that's in the foreground here, it's a little bit blurry, like the little text that's like telling you like information about the train when things are in motion here, but things kind of clear up when things come to a stop. You know, other things here like the occasional pop-up and pop-in happen from time to time here as well. Textures can be a little bit blurry. Vegetation and character models also are pretty low poly here, and for the characters, they only offer slight movement, you know, to kind of mix things up here from time to time. Everybody is looking at their cell phones, which is very representative of like what it's like at train stations in Japan. Now, on the flip side, there are several different weather effects available here with sunny, rainy, or snowy settings. Now, not only that, but you can choose from a handful of different times of day as well that all feature a different kind of look. Now, these effects are actually very impressive, especially with the rain and the snow. I mean, the rain beats on the front window of the train, individual snowflakes appear and melt, and the wipers realistically push away the precipitation. These are all really cool and really well done. Now, even with some of these nitpicks that I mentioned previously, Densha de Go on the Switch performs quite smoothly. Now, I imagine if some of this kind of stuff was smoothed out a little bit, if in an aim for a more realistic look, the game would probably suffer for it. While it is a little bit underwhelming, Densha de Go on the Switch is a pretty good representation of what it's like to cruise around trains throughout Tokyo and the surrounding areas. Now, the game holds pretty true to the sounds that you're going to hear when riding around trains in Tokyo too. Now, from the low hum of the trains picking up speed to the occasional sound of bumps, the announcer, complete with the English announcements here too, and alarms, Densha de Go is pretty realistic here in that regard. Now, outside of the real thing, this is about as close as you can get to riding on the trains in Tokyo without actually being here in Japan. Now, the only thing absent here are the melodies that play at each of the different train stations. Now, this seems to be like a licensing thing though, so there's really not much that can be done about that, unfortunately. I guess you can just find something on YouTube and play it while you're playing the game, but yeah, you're not going to find it actually in the game itself. Now, as you can guess, with a super Japanese game like Densha de Go, the language barrier here can be quite intimidating for many. While I don't think it's absolutely necessary to know the language to play the game, knowing some basics, or at least knowing what some of the in-game pop-ups are are talking about, that will definitely help you find more enjoyment out of the game. And I think the controls here are relatively easy to pick up over, if you give yourself a little bit of time, and once you nail that down, you're going to be fine. Perhaps the hardest thing to worry about are like the missions that have very specific parameters. Occasionally, when you're going through some missions, there are some very specific things that you have to do, like hey, make sure you honk at a person on a platform, or hit a certain speed, at some point during the mission, something like that. So this might be a little bit difficult to pick up on if you don't really know the language. Even with that said, I mean, as long as you're just like going the speed limit and basically doing what the on-screen prompts are saying, it's pretty straightforward, but you might find yourself having some trouble. Yeah, I think when it's all said and done, though, I think it just kind of boils down to whether or not this game looks like fun for you. I mean, if it is, then yeah, definitely go for it. I mean, if you don't really want to put in like the time, or you think it might be a little bit annoying to have to fiddle around with Japanese or something, which, it's completely understandable. This might not be the type of game for you. It might just be best to stick to YouTube videos. If you're willing to give yourself a little bit of a challenge to do that, though, to play this game, yeah, go for it. Now, Densha to Go on the Switch might not be the prettiest game out there, but the gameplay and the content are more than worth the asking price in my opinion. Now, of course, the Japanese will likely be an issue for some. Now, there are a lot of explanations and instructions that are laid out there, and if you're not the kind of person who wants to take the time to figure out what the hell's the thing is trying to tell you, I would imagine that you might find yourself frustrated from time to time. Still, for those brave enough, or those that are wishing to travel around the Yamanote line, you really can't go wrong here. It's a little tough at first. I was pretty awful when I first started out, but with some time and patience, you will get yourself cruising around Tokyo to get high scores and all that stuff in no time. As always, thanks for checking out this video. If you like what you see, please feel free to drop us a like. If you're new to the channel, please feel free to subscribe. We've got tons of podcasts, video reviews, looks at Japanese games just like this, and a whole lot more. Again, this is Danny from the Famicast. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later.